Hello and welcome to the first Establish the Show / Kama Sutra show of the season. It's called the Kama Sutra Show because on tonight's program, we will be going position by position through Sunday's exciting, riveting week one main slate. As always, for the Kama Sutra Show, I'm joined by Andrew Wiggins and Evan Silva. Wiggins, good evening.
Good evening to you, sir. Very excited to be back doing some NFL content here.
Perfect. Evan, sporting backwards hat for the first time, trying to be like me. Welcome.
Yes, definitely trying to be like you. Week one always has a ton of ambiguity, and there will be shocking surprises. I mean, and it started on Thursday night last night with Cam Akers being entirely phased out of the Rams offense, and even after Kieran Williams got hurt, Cam Akers barely played. And there are going to be instances of that throughout Sunday's games. But I think that we go into this with a mindset that we have more knowledge than our foes, and I think we're going to benefit
for sure. And the one thing I would say on Akers, I think, is a good example about being overconfident in volume inputs. In other words, I thought Akers was an absolutely egregious play. I don't want to get into the whole detail on all the Akers stuff, but there's more volatility than people realize early in the season in week one with volume inputs. And so, we're going to talk about a bunch of fragile spots. We have a zillion spots to talk about here. So I don't want to dilly-dally. I want to get right into it here. We'll start at the quarterback position. I think the most owned, at least on DraftKings, quarterback is going to be Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts gets a matchup against the Lions. I think that his matchup is probably the best and better than Lamar Jackson has. But, I think Lamar Jackson is clearly a better player, but matchup and pace and all that is in favor of Jalen Hurts. And so Jalen Hurts checks in as the best quarterback value that we have on DraftKings and also the highest owned. Evan, what do you think about Jalen Hurts' spot this week? And who would you think, if you had to pick one, who will score the most points at the quarterback position this week?
Yeah, I really like Jalen Hurts this week. I like the game. I bet the over at 48.5. Indoors, two teams with really good offensive lines. Now, the Lions have lost him, or they lost Big H, Vaitai. Yeah. He went on IR, and Ragnow, their stud center, was listed as questionable, although I think he was limited in his return to practice today. I think he's still got a chance to play, and he's a stud. But I when I broke down this game, I really liked that both teams have great offensive lines. Thorne has the Eagles as the best offensive line in the league, which I completely agree with. They're deep too. If dude goes out, they've got three stud. Well, actually, they lost Dillard. They lost their backup left tackle. But they have two stud backup offensive linemen and a great starting five. And I thought this. When I broke this down, I thought it was an over again. The Lions have a lot of problems in their pass defense. And I think that the Lions will be able to hold up their end of the bargain to some extent. So I love Jalen Hurts this week.
Yeah, it's hard to get away from Jalen Hurts in cash weekends. There's just not that many punts. And I actually think that there were some punts maybe earlier, but it didn't break right for Daniel Jones. I still think he's in play at 5K on DraftKings, but it's, it has not broken right from the wide receiver position for Daniel Jones. You could also maybe make case for Jameis or Trubisky down there. We'll talk about some of these punts, but I think it's really hard to get away from 6,800 plus Hurts, Lamar, Herbert, Mahomes as the best plays. Wiggins, how are you thinking about the top of the quarterback position?
Yeah, I think in cash, you're not going below Hurts. I think if you end up with some extra money, maybe you get up to Lamar. I do like Lamar maybe slightly more in a vacuum, but it's close. And Hurts, I think, is going to be the overwhelming cash quarterback, and for good reason here.
I mean, the way the Eagles offense is set up, it's set up to be incredibly, incredibly efficient. Best offensive line, as Evan mentioned. You add A.J. Brown to Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, another step forward, I think, for Jalen Hurts. They're going to be so efficient, and I certainly like Jalen Hurts. I do prefer Lamar slightly, but obviously that 500 on this slate is actually going to go a long way. Should mention, this is
I think I prefer Hurts straight up.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What about we have slightly more from Mahomes than those two, Evan? What do you think about Mahomes versus those two?
Ooh, and the Cardinals, they're like the Cardinals in a really tough spot right now with all their receiver injuries. Like the Chiefs should be able to sort of like impose their will on Arizona. Arizona is not very impressive from a pass rush standpoint. Obviously lost Chandler Jones. JJ Watt is banged up. Their secondary is garbage.
Yeah.
So I mean, the thing is that Mahomes doesn't run like the other dudes, and so I would straight up I would take Jalen Hurts over Mahomes this week.
Okay, yeah, I think from an ownership perspective for tournaments, I'm definitely interested in the Mahomes doubles. If you can get it right, obviously, I think Kelsey probably should be involved in the double. And then, we're going to talk about a bunch of Kansas City wide receivers that you could play. I do think that Juju and MVS are a step ahead of Sky Moore and McCole Hardman. I also think that Justin Herbert deserves to be in the conversation here, and he's going to be lightly owned as well. I think for cash, it's just not an option when he's 7,600. He's more than Lamar Jackson, but for tournaments, I definitely think Justin Herbert is in play. The Kyler Murray situation is tough. Not going to have Rondale Moore. Mm-hmm. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is suspended. Christian Kirk is a Jaguar now, and so you're like really scraping the bottom of the barrel. You have Marquise Brown, obviously, but beyond that, you do not have a lot from Kyler Murray. Evan, I'm curious how you think the wide receiver stuff impacts Kyler Murray's outlook for this week.
Yeah, I mean, you're always banking on Kyler Murray's dual threat capability. But I don't think he's going to be, as efficient from a passing standpoint. I mean, no DeAndre Hopkins. Rondale Moore is like out, right?
Out.
He was ruled out. Zach Ertz was limited calf. I mean, he's 32 years old. It sounds like he has a chance to play, but, he's not a difference maker. So, the game environment should be awesome in Cardinals Chiefs. I believe it's the highest total game on the slate. And so Kyler Murray can do it. Do you pair him with someone? Are we really going to play AJ Green in week one? I mean,
Hollywood, I think, is a pretty good play, but
absolutely.
Well, so here's my question. Does his ownership dive now that Rondale Moore is out? Because obviously that hurts him, but I don't think it changes the situation that much. Certainly it shouldn't impact his ceiling all that much. I think he still has a monster ceiling here. And now maybe he dips down into like 5, 6, 7% instead of being like 10 to 12%. And I'm pretty interested, but I'm not sure that's the case.
It seems like Marquise Brown is going to be like one of the highest owned dudes on the slate.
Yeah. He'll be in the mid. There's a lot of really good mid-range wide receiver plays, which may keep Marquise Brown in check. We'll get to that in a little bit here. But yeah, to me, Kyler is not on the same tier for cash as Lamar Jackson, as Jalen Hurts. I think Kyler is a step behind, but to me, that's, kind of the top tier: Hurts, Lamar, Herbert, Mahomes. Now, my initial thought actually had Trey Lance in that top tier as well, because he's 6K. We know we're going to get the rushing floor out of them, but no George Kittle. Obviously, like whatever's going on.
Are we sure about no George Kittle? You sure about that?
Report from Aaron Wilson is that very, very doubtful on George Kittle. So we have him projected out right now, I believe, and not expecting George Kittle to play. But it just hasn't been great with the Jimmy G coming back, going on the road for a 1:00 game as the 49ers come across the West Coast. It doesn't sit right with me. But I think a lot of people feel that way, and we've actually manually docked Trey Lance's ownership off of what the algorithm suggested. So, I think Trey Lance is still in play for tournaments. Duke could run for 100 yards.
I think that what the 49ers are going to do here, especially because they don't seem to really totally trust Trey Lance running the offense, they're going to run the shit out of the ball. Mm-hmm. They may run it like 40, 45 times. This Bears defense is not your Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks defense anymore, and they're going to be vulnerable from a run defense standpoint. And the 49ers should know that. We've seen Kyle Shanahan just smash that button, that rushing attempt button. And I think that's what they're going to want to do here.
Yeah. And so once you get beyond these guys, Mahomes, Herbert, Lamar, Hurts, Lance, Kyler, like none of these other guys are really going to be owned very much. And so we start getting into all these kind of different tournament plays. And I actually think there's a lot of them. I think Daniel Jones is in the mix. Goff, Matt Ryan, Lawrence, Carr, Cousins, Burrow. Like, to me, all these guys are similar. And that's one thing that we're going to see repeatedly through week one, is that because a lot of guys are clumped together, like nobody's separating that wildly, ownership is going to be relatively flat. And you can see our projections are relatively flat. It's normally not like this. Normally we have all kinds of bright green and red on the screen and stuff like that. It's just the way it broke for week one is everybody is kind of clumped together. Wiggins, I'm curious if you have anyone that stands out to you of kind of these second or third tier quarterbacks.
Yeah, I do think at every position there's a lot of interchangeable plays, or particularly at quarterback and wide receiver. Trey Lance, I think he's going to get completely overlooked. And yeah, it's not the best spot in the world, but he does have a really high ceiling. Maybe you pair him with Brandon Ayuk, who people were really starting to like towards the end of the preseason. You know, he was shooting up ADP wise, and I don't think he's going to get played at all. So a little bit of interest there. I think Joe Burrow is probably the guy I'm most interested in as far as the second tier. You know, his receivers are pretty good values on both sides. Maybe get a little steamed on DraftKings. I don't think people are going to play the receivers on the Steelers. You know, you can play Pickens for cheap. You could play Najee. I think he's going to be kind of owned, so I'd probably be looking at the receivers. But that's a way to attack that game. It's not supposed to be up tempo, but you never know. So that's probably the one I'm most interested in. But yeah, like I said, a lot of interchangeable plays across the board, so you really can't go too wrong.
Yeah, Evan, I think people often say like, "Oh, this is a AFC North slugfest," and Pittsburgh always has a good defense. What do you think about Joe Burrow's matchup here against the Steelers?
I think that, you know, if you go back to last year, the Bengals came out of the gate like not trusting their offensive line, not trusting Joe Burrow's knee necessarily, and they were kind of conservative early in the year. I think that they may come out like gangbusters this year. Certainly the Steelers still have some dangerous pass rushers, but their secondary is beatable. The Bengals upgraded their offensive line big time. Joe Burrow is now much further removed from that knee injury, and the Bengals can throw it all over the yard. So I guess my question would be, can the Steelers answer back to make it like a track meet? And I would lean no, because their offensive line is so shitty. Trubisky, like, you know, when are they going to move to Kenny Pickett? Is going to be at halftime? You know, like, I mean, I think that's like in play. You know what I mean? Because Kenny Pickett was really good in the preseason. So that would be my one knock against Joe Burrow. But I do like Joe Burrow. I mean, I think the Bengals are going to be efficient offensively.
Yeah.
Hey, man, 538 had Mitch ranked as the 12th best quarterback in the league ahead of Lamar Jackson. So, you know, get with the times over there, Evan.
Yeah. I think
Nate Silver losing it a little bit.
I think what you need on the Pittsburgh side to push Burrow is like a big play from Pickens or a big play from Claypool, you know, and I definitely think that's possible. Those guys are talented enough to do so. The other guy that I mentioned, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Daniel Jones, and I already alluded to the wide receiver situation. You know, it's been rough for Kenny Golladay. It's been rough for Kadarius Toney, but at least they're playing and they're healthy. And Sterling Shepard wasn't even on the final injury report. He's going to play also, and they have Wan'Dale also, and they have a healthy Saquon Barkley. So, like, yeah, the weapons had an awful August, but at least they're all out there and they're all healthy. And so at $5K, this is really, really cheap for Daniel Jones, who I think has an expectation around 20 or 25 rushing yards on top of what he can do with his arm. I don't think Daniel Jones is dead to have like a solid game here. I don't think he can really threaten Hurts or Lamar or Mahomes at all from a ceiling perspective, but just a solid median game from Daniel Jones gets you, 12 to 15 points at $5K, I think is pretty likely. And so I'll throw him into the mix. Any of these other guys you want to that stick out?
Jordan Raynon says that they're going to run Daniel Jones this year. Like, he's going to run quite a bit.
Yeah, they're going full blown Josh Allen with him. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else? Oh, what do you think about the Vegas Chargers game? Evan, Herbert, and Carr. It seems like it has a really good shootout potential. What do you think about Carr and Herbert?
I mean, I think that Carr is, well, no JC Jackson also for the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers paid a lot of money for him. The issue for Derek Carr is going to be Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa against an offensive line that I think Thorne had the Raiders 27th in the league, maybe even lower than that. I mean, it's definitely bottom 6, bottom 5.
Yeah, the number 2 mismatch in Thorne's DLOL rankings this week is Chargers against Raiders. Chargers defensive line 3rd, Raiders offensive line 27.
Yeah. Again, no JC Jackson, that helps, but I think that Carr is going to be under a lot of duress. And but I mean, I still think they can score. Like, Josh McDaniels knows that. Josh McDaniels is a really smart offensive strategist, and Renfro can win on shorter routes, and so can Darren Waller, and Devontae Adams definitely going to get his 9, 10, 11 targets against a depleted secondary. So I love the game environment there. It's just, does Derek Carr have the upside? That's always the issue with Derek Carr. Like, does he have the ceiling? He's shown us the ceiling at times, but, mostly he's been like a quarterback 10 through 12 as opposed to like a quarterback 1 through 7.
I wanted to mention a couple differences between DraftKings and FanDuel, specifically at the quarterback position. Quarterbacks on DraftKings are not as big of a fact. The pocket passers can do more because it's full PPR and you get 300-yard bonus, whereas on FanDuel, you just need touchdowns, and that's it. There's no bonuses. It's not full PPR. And so quarterbacks are going to count for a little bit more of your scoring there. But pocket passers who can go for 300 yards and you know where it's going is super valuable. And that brings me to Kirk Cousins, who I like for tournaments. I have a lot of respect for the Packers defense. I think Packers defense is going to be one of the best in the NFL this year. But Kirk Cousins, like the quintessential, has 4 really big games a year, and you know where it's going. If he has big games, it's likely going through Justin Jefferson for sure, and then one of Adam Thielen or Irv Smith. I don't think it's going to go through KJ Osborne, although it could. So, I think that Kirk Cousins doubles are at least interesting. And on DraftKings, depending on the size of your tournament, you can go back and listen to the tournament podcast. We talked about how to adjust your stacks for field size. But depending on your size, I do like the Kirk Cousins doubles. Any other quarterbacks? We haven't mentioned Trevor Lawrence against Washington. We haven't mentioned Matt Ryan against Houston, who I think is interesting. Goff against Philly. Jameis against Atlanta. Any of those guys stick out to either of you?
I like Jameis a little bit.
Yep, I was going to mention Jameis, and I was also going to mention Kirk Cousins. And the thing about Cousins is that the receivers are good values. I don't think anyone's going to play Kirk. And if you go back the last couple of years, Green Bay and Minnesota have had quite a few shootouts, so there's some history there. It's a little dirty, but not as dirty as Jameis. But this is as good a spot as Jameis will probably see all year. So you just hope that they're going to throw more than they did last year. And I'm not exactly sure who you pair him with if Michael Thomas is out, but
I'm pretty confident Michael Thomas is going to play. But I think Michael Thomas will be fine, and I like Chris Olave a lot. He kind of went under the radar, I think, in the preseason, but I see no reason why Chris Olave can't have a big game. One thing on inputs on Jameis, we're expecting them to be more throw heavy. We don't know if that's going to be the case. We're not expecting a ton of Taysom Hill to mix in. We don't know for sure that's not going to be the case, and so there's going to be some volatility there with Jameis, but he's 5,300. I think Jameis is at least in play for tournaments. All right. Let's go to the running back position where it's going to start to get a bit hairier. So the one guy that stands out on the slate to me from a price perspective, like totally mispriced, is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, anytime he's healthy, should be 9,500 on a full PPR site like DraftKings. He's 8,500 here. He's going to be very, very owned because it's relatively easy to fit him and nobody else really stands out. And so, obviously I'm playing Christian McCaffrey in cash. Wiggins is playing Christian McCaffrey in cash. I think anybody who doesn't show up with Christian McCaffrey in cash is making a mistake. That said, I'm sure some people will play JT over him, and I'm sure there's some people out there that will play Derrick Henry over him also. But to me, it's just a clear cut. Christian McCaffrey is the priority at the running back position. I mean, he gets like 25, 30 points like with ease thanks to the pass game role when he is right. And I do think Baker is an improvement there. In tournaments, I'm hopefully you guys listen to Establish the Million. Getting away from Christian McCaffrey, I think, is an option in tournaments, but you can listen to Establish the Million for the game theory bro take on that. What I find more interesting is the Jonathan Taylor stuff, because there's a lot of Nyheim Hines talk, and I love Nyheim Hines. He was one of my favorite, like 10th, 11th, 12th round picks. It doesn't mean that Jonathan Taylor can't catch passes on early downs. And if you believe the line, which by the way, I have an IKB on this Indy Houston game. I think Houston has a chance to win this game big time. They were an 8.5 point dog. Got a ton of sharp money on Houston. Now it's down to 7. But anyways, if you believe the line that they're a 7-point road favorite in Houston, obviously Jonathan Taylor is like one of the best bets to score a touchdown on this entire slate. That certainly plays better on FanDuel than on DraftKings. But anyways, I've said a lot here. Wiggins, what do you think about the top of running back here with McCaffrey, Taylor, and the big dog, Derrick Henry?
Yeah, so CMC, easy play. I would even play him in tournaments, particularly on DraftKings. Just, the guy's so good. I'm probably jumping from there past JT and Henry down to like Aaron Jones and Barkley. I mean, for me, Aaron Jones is the second best running play on the slate. I have a tough time understanding where the ownership's going to come out on JT and Henry. It's always higher than I anticipate on FanDuel. So you see Derrick Henry at 9.7, which is lower than he ever was last year. I mean, he was living around 11K. So it's a little enticing, and we've got him at 12%. And if he actually came in at 12%, think he'd be a pretty good tournament play, but I just don't really buy it. People love playing Derrick Henry, and I think he'll probably be closer to 20%. I don't really want any part of it there. I'd rather get Aaron Jones, for similar ownership at a much cheaper price, and I think he can match him in scoring, honestly.
Yeah. Evan, what do you think about this spot for McCaffrey, JT, and Henry? Anything stick out to you about their matchups?
McCaffrey is so matchup proof. It's just like I think what I'm looking at in terms of McCaffrey is the Panthers invested pretty big time into their offensive line. I talked about it in my Panthers Browns breakdown in the matchups column. If you look at their receiving options, they've got very little at tight end. Who knows about Robbie, Terrace Marshall? I mean, it's DJ Moore and then it's Christian McCaffrey. Like a ton of targets should be coming here for CMC. I'm struggling to get away from Derrick Henry, though. I mean, this is like the perfect spot to me to play Derrick Henry against the Giants. I mean, I don't know. It scares me a little bit that you're talking about his ownership being super, super high. I really wanted to force him in this week.
I think on DraftKings, Wiggins was referring to FanDuel at 9,700.
Okay.
I think on DraftKings, Derrick Henry somewhere in the 10 to 15% range, I think makes sense on DraftKings specifically, where everybody's going to be playing CMC for the full PPR. So, yeah, I have no problem with playing Derrick Henry either. Like, I know for a fact people are going to be playing Derrick Henry against me in cash, and like, it doesn't make me feel good. Like when the game flips over and I see everybody's lineups, I'm not going to be like fist pumping it in that they have Derrick Henry and I don't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's definitely scary. And I think, and as I said, I think JT is one of the best bets of the week to score a touchdown.
Sure.
Like,
yeah,
clearly.
How do you guys feel about playing two RBs against each other in the same game, like Saquon versus Derrick Henry, and playing them in the same lineup?
Yeah, so I don't like doing that because the way Derrick Henry scores points is through like 20, 25, 30 carries, and that just slows the game down so much for the other side.
Yeah.
But if you get one 80-yard Derrick Henry touchdown run, I mean, you're cooking with some gas. So, yeah, I don't like to do that with those kind of backs, but yeah,
well,
I don't think it's out of range.
It kind of depends on the situation with Barkley. It could be where they get behind and Barkley just catches a million balls. So
right.
I think it's probably fine. And Barkley's so underpriced. Now, Barkley's going to be over-owned here, but I think it's probably okay given a couple different dynamics.
Yeah. So agree with Wiggins that for cash, the top tier to me is pretty clearly CMC, Aaron Jones, and Barkley. And this is on DraftKings. This is price specific.
That's also on FanDuel too, though.
Also on FanDuel too. Okay. So, Aaron Jones, given Lazard out, I mean, his reception total in props is 4.5. And I actually think that, I think under is okay there as a bet, but like the median outcome is somewhere between like 4 and 6, 4 and 5 catches for Aaron Jones. And that's just so valuable here. Evan, what do you think about the matchup for Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon and how the Packers are going to play this against the Vikings?
Yeah. And, I think Aaron Rodgers himself put it perfectly. They're two of our best 11. We need to play them as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And I think they're both every week starters in redraft season long leagues. I think that against Minnesota, it sets up really, really well. No Lazard. Aaron Jones is the best receiver on the team, I mean, and we'll get to Sammy Watkins, but Aaron Jones is the best receiver on the damn team. And I mean, he's the second best skill position player that the Packers have. So I'm all about Aaron Jones. And I think that, AJ Dillon, he's a candidate for 2 touchdowns here.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Jones, I get that he's going to lose some snaps to AJ Dillon, but he's also 6,700. Like that's priced in. And so Aaron Jones to me is a really good play. The guy who's not going to lose snaps is Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, I think, is going to play 80, 90% of the snaps. So to get him at 6,100 is just, there's ways it goes bad for Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's been so inefficient as a runner lately. The entire offense could just turn to total shit. That's all possible. But when a guy's playing 80 or 90% of the snaps and he's 6,100 on DraftKings and really cheap on FanDuel also, like it's hard to get away from in cash. Now in tournaments, I think a Saquon fade makes sense, but I'm sure the ETM guys covered that in the last show.
Just when you just break down the Giants pass catcher core as a unit, we've got Kenny Golladay. He looks washed. We've got Kadarius Toney, enigmatic talent, but, maybe an underachiever. We've got, Sterling Shepard coming, less than 9 months removed from an Achilles tear. We've got Wan'Dale Robinson, 5'7" rookie, so it's like maybe the answer is just Saquon. Like, could he get 10 targets on Sunday? I think that's kind of in play. Daniel
that is the
Bellinger, a
answer.
4th-round rookie out of San Diego State, is their starting tight end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The way that it scares me is like, and that's my thing about playing Henry and Saquon together, is that the Giants offense can't get first downs and they just run the big dog 30 times and that eats up the entire clock and the Giants barely even have the ball, and so it's definitely possible. But that's why I think Saquon is a fade in tournaments. But anyways, there's some more guys here that I really like. I want to talk about Dameon Pierce because we did not have a great projection on Dameon Pierce. And let me try to explain why we don't have a great projection on Dameon Pierce here. Rex Burkhead, we are projecting to play a majority of the passing downs. And so Dameon Pierce is 7-point dog. If you believe that that's a correct line, and we do tend to believe that these markets are efficient, although week 1, I think are the most inefficient the lines will be all year. So that's why Dameon Pierce doesn't have a great projection. Now, but the counter to that is that I think Houston can win the game. And I think Dameon Pierce can get plenty of early down receptions. And maybe he steals some pass down work from Rex Burkhead as well. And he's 4,800 on a slate where you actually save a lot. So I've messed around with some cash lineups that have Dameon Pierce. It's not going to project well. Like the Dameon Pierce lineups are not going to project well. It would be IKB, but I'm tempted by it. Evan, I assume you're excited for Dameon Pierce here as the president of the Dameon Pierce fan club for the last month or so. But what do you think about the specific matchup for Dameon
I liked
Pierce?
him when he was going in the 5th and 6th rounds. Like I'm not, I was doing drafts, FFPC, high dollar, high stakes drafts, late in the process. And dude started to go like at 306, 401. Like he wouldn't get out of the early 4th round. So look, there's a tipping point with Dameon Pierce. With that said, the Colts loss of Shaq Leonard, formerly known as Darius Leonard, an absolute stud. He is out for this game. I think that he's like a true difference maker on defense. Thorne has expressed some optimism about the state of the Texans' offensive line potentially taking a leap this year. And I'm interested in your theory that the Texans could actually win this game. I mean, the Colts I think they're a solid team, but they're certainly vulnerable. Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to play much Dameon Pierce this week. But I get it. I get it.
Well, that's scary. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you dip your toe in and then you got to pull it back out.
You're cashing your chips in. You're cashing all your before we even play a slate of DFS. You're cashing your chips in. We haven't even played a slate yet.
Okay. I mean, I don't. What is he going to be super popular? Like, I only play one lineup.
Yeah.
No, I want to be a little bit contrarian.
We have 12% on Dameon Pierce.
It's a bit of tale of two sides. I mean, if you want to play him, in cash, just go over to FanDuel. He's 5.4K. I think he's arguably the 3rd best running back play over there. Probably going to want to have him in cash. It's a little bit tougher on DraftKings, especially when you start comparing him to some of the wide receivers in that range. You got a bunch of good wide receivers around 5K. He's 5'4", I believe, on DraftKings. So I certainly prefer the receivers over him straight up, but I don't think he'll be too owned in tournaments on DraftKings. He's not going to go overlooked, but he's not going to be super chalky, I don't think.
In the scenario that you present, when the Colts are favored by 7 and the Texans are trailing, like Rex Burkhead could end up out-snapping Dameon Pierce in theory in that scenario. So I mean, I think I put in matchups, I think he's a boom bust RB2 play, something like that.
Yeah. Certainly not like the cleanest spot for him. But again, I do think the Texans are an underrated team. And so I'm at least intrigued by it. There's other top tier running backs we haven't even mentioned yet. We haven't mentioned Austin Eckler. We haven't mentioned Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris. I would consider all those guys kind of a cut below the guys we've already talked about, but still very, very, very much in play. Let's talk about the Steelers Bengals game for a second here, Evan. We obviously expect Najee Harris to play almost every snap, but very tough spot for Najee Harris. He's just so cheap, 6,400. And again, just like Saquon, he's 6,400. He's going to play 80 or 90% of snaps. He's not a bad play. What do you think about Najee and Mixon here, Evan?
Just kind of mid on both. I mean, not super excited about either of them.
Yeah. I mean,
the game environment could be ugly. It could be ugly. I think the Bengals are going to end up scoring, but I don't know if the Steelers are.
The Steelers' run defense was so bad last year. Do you think it's going to be the same, or should it be improved, Evan?
No, I don't think it's going to improve. No, I mean they're not good in run defense.
Yeah.
They can rush the passer, but they can't. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, like, you know, how many targets are we gonna get from Mixon? Like, he's got to hit pay dirt.
Yeah. He needs to score a touchdown for sure. And they are a 7-point home favorite. And you can see like a lot of that flows through into the projection where we're expecting fewer Pirine snaps in this game because we expect the Bengals to be winning, basically, is the bottom line. And so you start to get a lot more touchdown expectation for Joe Mixon there. You see we have 19.4 points. I'm certainly intrigued more than either of those guys. Although I do think Najee is like, I'm not going to play Najee, but especially at 18%. But if he was way less, I think he's at least a thoughtful pivot off of Saquon if he comes in at less ownership. But the guy that I'm most excited about is actually Austin Eckler. Given what happened to the Chargers backup running backs in the preseason, I mean, you know, Isaiah Spiller has been out for the last 3 weeks and he practiced full. I don't even know if he's going to be active though. And then, you know, Kelly and Sony Michel and Roundtree, they're just a mess. So all of that leads me back to a lot of Austin Eckler usage. And so I know he's expensive at 8,200, but, you know, we have 9% here, and that's just a pay up to be contrarian spot for me on Austin Eckler, who I think, you know, is one of the guys that can match Christian McCaffrey or beat Christian McCaffrey on the slate is Austin Eckler. That's one that I like. Either you guys have any thoughts on that one? And then I also wanted to mention DeAndre Swift is just like a clear, very, very good play, period.
I think the Eckler call is really good. I think you could play him with Herbert too if you wanted, but he's just going to go a little bit overlooked. As I want to make a note about Najee Harris, so he's projected very highly across the industry, and some of the other sites have him projected as the most chalky running back, particularly on DraftKings. He's a little bit more expensive on FanDuel, so keep that in mind. I think he's an easy fade. I feel like people are going to talk him down as we get closer to Sunday. I think Barkley will be heavier owned, and that's how we're projecting it right now, but it's not projected that way around the industry. So I don't, you know, if you're thinking about pivoting to him, I don't think you're like sneaking one by anyone.
Okay.
So
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point because I do not want to play Najee Harris at ownership. Evan, any thoughts on Eckler? And then I want to mention DeAndre Swift because like if we didn't have all this Saquon and Aaron Jones stuff going on, I'd be like, let me play DeAndre Swift in this spot at home, you know, at 6,800 as a small dog. Like it's a really good spot for DeAndre Swift also. So what do you think about Eckler and DeAndre Swift?
I think Eckler is just like super obvious. Like, you know what I mean? Very high total. I think it's the second highest total game. No clarity at the number 2 RB position. There's a guy that they trust. And, you know, I mean, Justin Herbert is going to throw the ball to Eckler, and Eckler is a fucking baller. So, I mean, I think that's just a simple one. Swift is interesting against Philadelphia. Philadelphia, you know, you can beat them up in the middle of the field, you know, with tight ends and running back receptions. And I do like the Eagles in this game. And that oftentimes translates to better production for DeAndre Swift because he plays in passing situations in comeback mode. I know that you hated Antonio Gibson. You know, as the redraft season progressed, and even after the Brian Robinson thing, his matchup is awesome. The Commanders have a pretty good offensive line, and they didn't pull up Jarrett Patterson or anything from the practice squad. So, I mean, are people going to play Antonio Gibson this week? What do we have him at 0.7%?
We have 11%. Yeah.
Oh, 11%. Oh, never mind.
But I think that could end up being high. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're a little bit higher on FanDuel too. I kind of think people are going to play him.
Really?
Yeah. Listen, I've made my point on Antonio Gibson clear. I think I'm not playing any Antonio Gibson this weekend. I think the volume inputs are so fragile there. We could see more McKissick. We could see more Williams. And also this line went from 3.5 to 2.5. And like, doesn't sound like a lot. When lines cross through 3, I mean, that is a absolutely massive, massive, massive move. We talked about it today on the Pool show. And so I'm not like convinced by any stretch that Washington's going to come out here and play well. Like,
let's talk Miles Sanders.
Yeah. Let's talk Miles Sanders because he's completely healthy and they didn't add Kareem Hunt and, you know, Boston Scott's been banged up. So yeah, go ahead on Miles Sanders, Evan.
Yeah, and the Lions are missing some dudes on defense, and I think they already had issues on defense, and they're missing some good dudes. So, and Miles Sanders is not on the injury report.
Correct.
So he's practicing fully. I mean, he's going to lose some snaps. He's going to be, I don't know, 65% of the snaps would be a good number for him to hit, I think, this week. But I like the scoring potential in Lions Philly, and Miles Sanders has been hyper efficient. He has his flaws, but he's been a hyper efficient runner. And this offensive line is just going to kick ass against this Lions defensive front. And the Lions their defense is problematic. I mean, I know we were kind of like, fans of the Lions this year in terms of like win total, but their defense is like, it looks really bad on paper. Yeah.
Really bad. Yep, for sure. And you can see we have all three Eagles running backs projected to play here, but Sanders still projects as a break-even value at 2% owned. I think that's really, really interesting one for sure. We got to mention Eli Mitchell. I have another IKB take. Bears are going to shock the world.
No,
oh my God.
No, don't
Bears
you
are
dare.
going to shock the world.
Don't you dare.
No, they're not. Dude. They're not. I swear to God.
I can't wait till Dave Holmes clips this. Bears are going to shock the world. We have Trey Lance, shaky Trey Lance going on the road as a West Coast team going east for a 1:00 start without George Kittle. You don't tell me you can't see the Bears rising up in the opener for the hometown fans here under a new coaching staff. How can we write them off? We haven't seen what this new coaching staff has yet. And so my take on the Eli Mitchell stuff is that I actually think the Bears can play well in this game. And so I'm not that into Eli Mitchell, but I do think that he's Kyle Shanahan's boy, and he will see an overwhelming majority of the snaps. So
this is a hyper Ace Rothstein take right here.
This one's not going to age well.
Yeah, I can't wait for Nick Bosa to have 4 fucking sacks against the Bears starting left tackle, who's a 5th-round pick out of motherfucking Southern Utah. Okay,
it is Thorne's number one mismatch is 49ers DL versus Bears OL. Yes.
Nick Bosa is about to go nuts, man.
Well, if you guys are on the 49ers side, Wiggins, what do you think about Eli Mitchell?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I don't think anyone's going to play him. I mean, would it surprise you at all if he scores 2 touchdowns here?
No.
I have a gold star play that I hope you guys are going to talk me out of, because all this guy has done is fucked me over and over and over again for years running. But I like CEH here. We don't really know what the role is, but I don't think people are going to play him. They have, I believe, the highest total on the slate at near 30 points. Yeah. I expect him to have the goal line work, and it's just a pivot off of, Kelsey's going to be uber chalk. I think Juju's going to be super chalky. It's just a clear pivot. And here's another guy. Would it surprise you if he scores 2 touchdowns here? I don't know. I mean, he's been so bad, but like if he's ever going to do it, like this might be it right here.
Yeah. So my thing on CEH is that we know McKinnon's going to play on pass downs. The one thing I wanted to add about this backfield is that all 4 may be active, but I'm not sure all 4 are actually going to play on offense. Like Pacheco could be active and only play on special teams. He's definitely the kick returner. He plays on the other special teams. So like we'll see who's active, and maybe Ronald Jones is a scratch, which I think would be good for CEH. But if Ronald Jones is active, he doesn't play on special teams. So I think you have to expect him to at least take a few base carries from CEH. But yeah, I mean,
you're just looking for touchdowns. He's cheap, and I don't really like him for season long, but I do think they'll give him a crack at the beginning of the season. I think they want him to do well. He just isn't very good. But like I said, if he's going to do it, it's going to be early in the season. This would be a good spot. Maybe you can get 2 touchdowns out of him. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. It sounds similar to me as the Eli Mitchell play, and they're the exact same price too. You want to get multiple touchdowns. I also think in that range, we mentioned Miles Sanders already. I think Chase Edmonds is interesting in that range at 5,200, and then Travis Etienne at 5,600. The Travis Etienne thing is going to go back to what you think about James Robinson. My take is that it's been overhyped how much James Robinson is going to be able to play, but they're like adamant. I mean, he wasn't even on the final injury report. They're adamant that James Robinson is going to be completely fine and play a lot in this game. I'm still skeptical. We only have him for 7 points here, but a lot of that is going to affect how you feel about Etienne. So I don't know if you have a read here, Evan. What do you think about Etienne against Washington and how much James Robinson plays?
I don't know. I mean, I'm like, I've beaten the drum for the anti-Achilles running backs for years and years and years at this point. And we have a literal 100% hit rate, and got another hit kind of last night with Cam Akers, and in the playoffs, he was highly inefficient. So I'm still kind of riding that. I'm totally out on James Robinson. It wouldn't surprise me if Snoop Connor plays ahead of James Robinson. At the same time, I don't know. So I'm kind of throwing my hands up. I don't know. CEH to me is one of the easiest props this week, I think, was over 11.5 rushing attempts for CEH, which I think that's an easy get. And I think he's an awesome play. I'm with you guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think Travis Etienne is a guy where, Leone talks a lot about leaning into uncertainty. In other words, we don't know that our inputs are right for Jacksonville backfield because we don't know how much James Robinson's going to play, exactly how they're going to use Etienne. But if Etienne is used a la Swift, a la Eckler, like 5,600 at 6%, people are going to be like, oh my God, how did I not play Etienne? And so I think that's at least worth mentioning. Only a few other running backs on my list here. Alvin Kamara, we haven't mentioned. James Conner and Nick Chubb. Obviously, the deal with Nick Chubb. If they're losing, he's going to be in big trouble. James Conner, I think they talked a lot about on ETM. You can go ahead and watch that show. And then Alvin Kamara, obviously, he's 7,600, which is expensive, but one of the highest ceilings on the slate. Evan, I'm curious what you think about Chiefs run defense. That's a spot we've been attacking historically. Yeah. What do you think about James Conner against the Chiefs?
I don't think it's anything to be worried about. I was sort of thinking that Rondale Moore could end up stealing some running back snaps from James Conner. Maybe this is just like I've been imagining this, because to me, like, Rondale Moore is Austin Eckler. And that's the way that he should be used. But so I have that sort of like little bias in me. And like, Benjamin has played in the league for 2 years, has 40 career touches. Mm-hmm. Okay. So no Rondale Moore. James Conner, I think he's going to play almost every snap. I mean, I think that there's a scenario where he definitely could play almost every single snap. They lost a bunch of dudes that they trust in the pass catcher core, or they're banged up. And this game has a massive total, the highest total of the entire week. Yeah. So I totally get it with James Conner. I mean, I think he makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. It's hard to play Nick Chubb on full PPR DraftKings on FanDuel, though, Wiggins. I always think Chubb is in play for tournaments. I had a really good FanDuel team, not the team that won the 250, but a different FanDuel team that had Nick Chubb. And I like playing Nick Chubb when he's really low owned on FanDuel. Any other FanDuel running back takes, Wiggins? And also, we didn't mention Kamara, if you have any takes on him.
Yeah, Kamara's fine. Chubb, he's not really a great play on FanDuel. We got him at 4% ownership. So if you just want somebody that's capable of breaking big plays, it's not going to be owned at all, then he's your guy.
Okay. Evan, anything stick out to you with Kamara's matchup against the Falcons here, or any other running backs you want to mention?
No, I mean, nothing really stands out about Kamara because the Saints pass catcher core appears to be at full strength right now, which technically works against him a little bit. And Jameis is not, the check down passer that was Drew Brees for Alvin Kamara's sake. So I think Alvin Kamara is a very good play. He doesn't stand out to me.
Yeah, I probably won't have a lot of Kamara, and it scares me because the way he's used can make him finish as the number one running back on the entire slate. Like, some guys don't have that really in them. Like, Alvin Kamara certainly has that in his range for sure. All right. Any other running backs? Are we ready to go to wide receiver?
Receiver.
I don't have a ton of wide receivers that I thought were like standout plays. And most of them that I like are in the mid-range. To me, Wiggins, the top tier is pretty clearly all these guys in the mid-range. Juju Smith-Schuster, 5,200. Christian Kirk, 5,100. Michael Pittman stands out at 5,500. DJ Moore, 6K. T. Higgins, 61. Marquise Brown, 62. Like, all those guys between 5,100 and 6,200, like, that's where I'm living in cash. I don't think I have enough money to get up for Jamar Chase, to get up for Justin Jefferson, or anyone like that. And so, like, I think that's what a lot of people are going to do on DraftKings, is live in that mid-range. And I think that it makes sense. I want to pick through some of these plays here. To me, the best one is Michael Pittman. Like, the most solid one is Michael Pittman. He's only 5,500. We know he doesn't have a lot of target competition. We know Matt Ryan is an upgrade, I think, on Carson Wentz. He has a really good matchup against Houston. So it's hard for me to poke any holes really in Michael Pittman here. Evan, can you poke any holes in the spot for Michael Pittman?
Not really. I was big on him in redraft. You read Matt Harmon's reception perception on Michael Pittman, like, absolutely loves him, like, wins against man and zone, and has a great route tree. And I agree with you that Matt Ryan is a big upgrade on Carson Wentz. So no, and it's a totally unimposing matchup against the Texans. So I very much like Michael Pittman this week for sure.
Okay. The second best one to me, I think is Juju Smith-Schuster at 5,200. I think Juju is going to be an every down player in the slot. Patrick Mahomes loves to throw at the slot. And to me, the clear top two for Kansas City is going to be MVS and Juju. And again, I think Sky Moore and Mecole will rotate through. And, 5,200 playing the slot with Patrick Mahomes, like it's too cheap, clearly. But I also think that DJ Moore and Christian Kirk and T. Higgins are not that far off of him in price. So Wiggins, how are you thinking about all these guys in the mid-range?
Yeah, I think Pittman's basically a free square on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's up at 7.2K, so he's actually more of a tournament play over there probably. But man, like how owned do you think is he going to be in cash on DraftKings? Like 50, 60%? It's going to be really
he was
high.
going, and like people were like smashing the button on him in the third round in fantasy drafts, and now he's 5,500 against the Texans. Like everybody's going to be playing Michael Pittman.
Yeah. So I'm probably pretty interested to go another direction in tournaments just because he's going to be so highly owned, and generally with wide receivers, it's just, particularly when you have so many other guys that are projected pretty closely in the same price range. I do think Juju's going to catch a lot of ownership. I think Christian Kirk is right there. I think Elijah Moore is right there. I think Elijah Moore is going to go mostly overlooked on this. Like people are going to see Baltimore. They're going to see all the other guys in that range. So to me, that's my gold star GPP play in that range. But frankly, all these guys, and you mentioned DJ Moore, who's a little bit more, but there's just so many interchangeable wide receivers. I don't have a strong take. And I think it's even more difficult on FanDuel. Like on DraftKings, we have Pittman as a standout, and then we'll talk about all the cheap guys and how that works in. But FanDuel is just kind of like everybody is the same play to me. So I'm really having a difficult time figuring out who to play on FanDuel. But hopefully we can work through this. Maybe Evan has some takes on who stands out amongst these middle tier guys.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the Pittman and Juju at cost are the best. And I think DJ Moore and T. Higgins are really, really close after that. And then I'd have Christian Kirk kind of a little bit below that. Evan, any takes on those guys? Specifically, what do you think about the spot for DJ Moore against the Browns and T. Higgins against the Steelers?
It's just with DJ Moore, he has so little target competition aside from CMC. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get from Robbie. Again, the tight ends are like they've been non-entities as pass catchers. DJ Moore has like very high target share upside. So that's what I like about him. Christian Kirk, I think, is really, really interesting. They're going to move him around the formation. Zay Jones and Marvin Jones. And then Evan Ingram, like, the perennial conundrum that is Evan Ingram. I mean, Zay Jones has had like 4 good games in his career. Marvin Jones' underlying metrics last year as a receiver, and he's 32 years old now, were super, super poor. So I really like Christian Kirk against Washington.
I think Christian Kirk is fine for cash, and I think DJ Moore is fine for cash as well.
Hold on, just sticking on him for a second. I want to just move it over to FanDuel because the pricing is a little bit different there. You've got DJ Moore's priced the same as Mike Williams and Brandon Cooks. We have all of them projected very similarly with Hollywood Brown, just a little bit more. And then you've got like Adam Thielen, a little bit cheaper. Kirk is a little bit closer in price over there. Evan, how would you, particularly the top 3 I mentioned, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, and Brandon Cooks, how would you rank those 3?
I think I would go Big Mike number 1 because that game has a lot of shootout potential. And if you look at the Raiders secondary, absolute garbage. It's a joke that they're starting Rock Ya-Sin and Jonathan Abram in the secondary. And I mean, Herbert, like he could go absolute nuclear this year. And you remember last year, if you spin it back to last year, the way that Joe Lombardi, the Chargers OC, was calling plays, like Mike Williams was the number 1. We don't really know, and it kind of changed as the season progressed. But would it surprise anyone, especially after they gave Big Mike a 3-year, $60 million contract, that they come out of the gate and he's the number 1 again? Mm-hmm. I mean, Big Mike is like a really, really interesting play this week, I think.
Yeah. And who were the 3 again? Wiggins, Big Mike,
Brandon Cooks, and DJ Moore are all kind of right there.
I mean, I think DJ Moore second and then Cooks third.
That's how I would have it too. Big, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Big Mike, DJ Moore, then Brandon Cooks. I like that. We should know Marquise Brown. I mean, to me, when other guys are out, it's like at the wide receiver position, it's like, well, can they really give Marquise Brown like 10, 12, 14 targets? He doesn't strike me as that kind of player. but maybe I'm off there. Evan, what do you think about Arizona's pass game this week
Yeah.
with everything we know with their injuries and Marquise Brown?
Well, I think that they're gonna, they run a lot of plays. Number one. Number two, I think that they'll be in trail mode. I mean, I think the Chiefs are a considerably better team than are the Cardinals. So this could be a game where we see double-digit targets for Marquise Brown. The seas have just sort of like parted as the week has progressed. The seas have sort of parted for Marquise Brown to have a really high volume game.
Yeah. Do you want to give any love to your boy AJ Green before we get to your other boy Sammy Watkins? You can talk about all the dust balls. You can talk about all the dust balls in one segment.
I mean, I'm gonna, I'm gonna let that one go. I'm gonna let that one go. Right?
Yeah, I do think AJ Green's gonna play almost every snap. It's just he's been so inefficient. It's like really hard.
But you know what? And he's 34. Okay, I mean he's like almost as old as us.
Yeah.
But hey, this would be the time to play him. Yeah, and it's the highest total game in the week. Like,
yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna play him, play him in week 1.
Well, let's get into that narrative because everybody is telling me, Adam, the week to play Sammy Watkins is week 1. Sammy Watkins always goes off in week 1. You can play AJ Green, you can play Travis Kelce, you can play Sammy Watkins because it's week 1. It's week 1, guys. It's totally fine. I'm very skeptical about Sammy Watkins actually being able to perform at this point in his career, but you can't deny that he actually might be the number 1 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers in a potential shootout against the Vikings. So Evan, I'll give you the floor. You've been dying. Evan's been behind the scenes just telling us to take Sammy Watkins in every draft. He's just on Sammy Watkins.
He goes in the fucking 18th round. I mean, come on. I mean, he's an easy drop if it doesn't work out. And if it does, like you just got like Aaron Rodgers, number 1 receiver in the 18th round. I mean, I think that's sort of like how you play fantasy football.
Sure.
And they call it, and the haters and losers, of which there are many, they refer to it as the James Jones corollary, that you may think that this player is dust, and he may be dust, but if he's Aaron Rodgers' number 1 receiver, he can be highly productive in the box score. And there's nothing really to fear about this matchup against the Vikings secondary. Like they just hired this new GM. The new GM used his first, second, and fourth round picks on players in the secondary. They're starting Patrick Peterson. You want to talk about dust? Sammy Watkins is gonna fucking dust Patrick Peterson, okay, on Sunday. And is Sammy Watkins gonna catch it? Is he gonna pull the fucking hamstring when he's going to try to catch it? I mean, that all that stuff is in play. But the problem for me with Sammy Watkins is that I didn't realize he was 4,600 on DK. Like I thought they would be just giving him away 3.1 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got to pay for him a little bit.
Right. So to me on DraftKings, like I can't play Sammy Watkins over guys that I mentioned, like the guys in this low 5K. Elijah Moore, I think, was a really sharp call from Wiggins with Joe Flacco starting. I think is actually better for Elijah Moore. And so like there's no way I'm playing Sammy Watkins over Elijah Moore on FanDuel. I guess he's cheaper there is Sammy Watkins, and it's more touchdown heavy. So maybe that's better for Sammy Watkins. But man, I don't have a lot of faith in the fragility of the inputs on Packers wide receivers. I mean, they could play Amari Rodgers. They could play Christian Watson, who we haven't seen at all. So like, I know that there's lineups, there's cash lineups that include Romeo Doubs at 3K on DraftKings. Mm-hmm. That scares me too. And we'll get to some of these punts at wide receiver in a second here. But yeah, Wiggins, what do you think about Doubs and Watkins and any other Green Bay stuff?
I wish I knew. I won't be playing Watkins. As far as the cheap guys, I want to hear what Evan has to say. I mean, Cobb is interesting. Doubs is interesting, but
what's Cobb's price? I haven't set a single lineup yet.
3-4 on DraftKings.
Oh, okay. Hey,
yeah,
he could be the dude. I mean, listen, if Aaron Rodgers trusts you and targets you, like you're gonna be good in fantasy, like that.
I listened to the ayahuasca pod interview with Rodgers, and he had nothing but good things to say about Cobb. Best smile he's ever seen. Best laugh.
Best smile.
Lights up a room.
He loves Randall Cobb.
Loves Randall Cobb.
Loves. There's no doubt about that. I don't think I can stomach. Like I think Jahan Dotson is better straight up than Randall Cobb. I don't even think about that one. Evan Dotson every snap against the Jaguars or Randall Cobb, and kind of. Yeah. I don't know how much Randall Cobb's going to play against the Vikings. What do you think about Dotson or Cobb straight up?
I think Cobb.
Oh God,
I know.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
I hate it.
Baby.
I think Dotson just for youth, but everybody knows me as an
Yeah.
ageist, so
Right. No, I mean, I think we start really leaning into the youth like week 4 or 5. I mean, we can bet on some of these old dudes in week 1.
Yeah, that's the narrative for sure.
I do think it's an error. People trust the rookies too much week 1 in DFS. Like these guys are going to be good, but you look at all the top play or like all the top values on DraftKings, and there's a lot of rookies up there. And I think more likely than not, those guys are going to fail. Now Dotson, I think, is a little bit unique in that I feel the most confident in his role, but he's still a rookie, and so
he's
they're
going to play every snap though.
Yeah,
I mean,
so he'll be out there at
definitely.
least. So some of the other guys we don't know for sure,
Yeah.
like Robinson or Dubs, but
right. That's my whole thing. Like the range on Dubs is so wide, you know. And if you told me that he was going to play every snap, of course I'd play Dubs. But I don't know that for sure. A rookie with Aaron Rodgers.
No, I mean Aaron Rodgers individually dictates who's going to be out there.
Yeah,
you know, and I mean, like he calls the shots when it comes to who's playing.
There's other punts. We mentioned Jahan Dotson. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, took a hit, Evan. I have a ton of Wan'Dale Robinson on like every best ball team. And a lot of that was because I didn't think Sterling Shepard was gonna be ready. These Achilles things, man. And I understand that that a lot of them have struggled. But you know, God, I mean, I don't think Sterling Shepard being healthy is great for Wan'Dale.
No.
So Evan, what do you think about Wan'Dale and anything else with the Giants? Because Kadarius Toney's only 4,100. I know we've already talked about this, but Toney's 4,100 and Wan'Dale is stone minimum of 3K.
I think the answer is just Saquon. I think there's going to be a big receiver rotation. I mean, like David Sills could even get out there and play. Yeah. They brought back Slayton. You know, I mean, it's just I don't trust any of the guys.
Yeah, we don't have Slayton for any points right now. We do have Sills for a bit of playing time here. And yeah, I mean, we don't have any wide receiver. We made it very, very flat. But if you think you have a read on who's going to step up for the Giants, by all means, it's going to be a good value because they're all really cheap. But we have it really flat, and I think that's the way it's going to go. Actually, I think that's the right projection, is to have it all really, really flat. We don't have anyone above 9.9 DK points, which is really low for full PPR. The other, I guess not punts, but then in the 4K range, you get to like the George Pickens types, Wiggins, and like I don't know if Pickens is that big of an upgrade off of Dotson, but there's certainly some cash teams that land on Pickens on DraftKings. So Wiggins, what do you think about playing Pickens in cash or anything else down here at the bottom end of wide receiver?
We should note that Deontay Johnson is off the injury report.
Correct.
After a scare that he might not play due to a shoulder injury. But go ahead, Wiggins.
Well, I was going to ask you, Evan, what you think. I think the same warning applies to him. I mean, you just got to be careful with these rookies. We don't really know. He got a lot of hype, obviously. I think he's going to have a really good year. The price is fine. I think he's going to be priced higher than this down the line, but should you play him in cash here? Probably not. But he is fitting some things. So I'm curious what Evan thinks.
I don't really know. I think that, he's definitely going to play, number one, which is something that we needed to establish. I don't know. He may be less than 100%. However, Claypool is going to run a lot of high percentage routes. So is Freiermuth. So is Najee. And Deontay Johnson has always run a lot of, high percentage stuff. So, I mean, look, I love George Pickens. Like this is like the swaggiest rookie I've ever seen in my life coming into the league at wideout. But and the offensive line is terrible. I'm just worried, like, are they going to score 10, 13 points? Yeah. I think that's in their range of potential outcomes for the Steelers.
Yep. Now, there are a lot of pivots to make at wide receiver because, as we've said, a lot of this ownership is going to condense around these guys that we mentioned in the middle there. There's other guys in the middle that I really do like. Wiggins mentioned Elijah Moore. I'm going to throw out Devonta Smith at 5,500 as a tournament play. I mean, people discount how good Devonta Smith is. I get that A.J. Brown is a total freak, but Devonta Smith is very, very, very good at the game of football, and we have him for like 4% ownership against the Lions, which is just totally ridiculous on Devonta Smith. I also think in that same game, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you guys know how I feel about Amon-Ra at 6,100. I don't think he's going to be owned very much against the Eagles working the middle of the field, like Evan already mentioned. Then there's guys like Waddle too are going to go like completely unowned. And so I'd really encourage people who are playing tournaments to try to get weird at 2 spots of wide receiver, 3 spots at wide receiver, try to get weird there and take advantage of some of this overconfidence in the middle. Wiggins, what do you think about tournament plays at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, I think Devonta Smith is awesome on both sides. I think You mentioned Waddle, but I mean, how about Tyreek Hill as well?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Dolphins guys are really interesting here. They're not going to be played at all. I think New England is going to be terrible this year. I think the Dolphins are going to roll here. So here's a little bet for you. It's -3.5 right now. Dolphins. I like that one a lot. Man,
putting it in.
Tyreek is projected at 6% right now. At a pretty good tag, 7.7. I know it's a different situation than last year, but I mean, talk about a guy that can break the slate. Like he's the king of it. So I really like Tyreek in GPPs.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have like no ownership on Waddle or Tyreek. Yeah, Mo is pointing out that Chase Claypool is going to be the slot. Yes, we've talked about that since the preseason. It's going to be Pickens and Deontay on the outside and Chase Claypool in the slot when they do go 3 wide receiver sets. I think Chase Claypool at 5K is at least intriguing. I think I like some guys on this slate more, but he's in play at least.
Tyreek, and I was quoting his FanDuel price. He's 6.8 on DraftKings. Like nobody's going to play him. But you could easily see him. I mean, he could be the top scoring receiver on the slate.
One other guy that I wanted to bring up, kind of that is around these guys, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, has a chance to play every snap with Patrick Mahomes and have a really big ADOT, and is facing the freaking Cardinals. Like, how is he 2% projected ownership? To me, MVS is. I'm really tempted to include MVS in my Mahomes stacks for sure. We didn't mention Jamar Chase too much. We didn't mention Justin Jefferson too much. To me, those are the best of the expensive guys. I think Devontae Adams is interesting for tournaments. And then obviously you have guys like AJ Brown and Michael Thomas and Thielen and Bateman and Drake London if he plays. I want to mention DJ Chark as kind of a thinner large field tournament play too. I think DJ Chark is just like better than people give him credit for. And I think this game could be a crazy shootout. We have no ownership projected whatsoever on DJ Chark. And I like Amon-Ra better, obviously, but DJ Chark is cheaper. Any other wide receivers you guys want to mention?
No, I'm trying to build a parlay right now.
Okay. Vidi says that Dink flag planted Tyreek, and therefore Neil points out that ownership projections likely
sharp guy. That Dink. Yeah, I just Tyreek. When you look at the ownership there, and now maybe they're going to get steamed if it's just kind of obvious. I think, and if Dink. I didn't have a chance to listen to that before, but yeah, maybe they get steamed a little bit. But even still,
yeah. And by the way, we're working on top plays behind the scenes. For the guys who are new, this show is more about team play the best plays. We're talking about cash. We're talking about just the best plays. We're not worrying about ownership too much unless we try to identify some tournament plays. And then in top plays, we won't worry about ownership at all. We're just trying to play the best plays. That'll be up after this show. If you want tournament takes, we do have, of course, Establish the Million and GPP game scores and GPP leverage are up right now as well for tournament. But really, when I'm playing tournaments, like a lot of what I'm looking at is just sorting this by value and looking for guys that are going to be under owned. Keenan Allen, 6%. We have a pretty good projection on him. He's probably a pretty good tournament play, right? And like, it's not that complicated. I think it's just a good way to think about tournaments. All right, let's go to the tight end position. Well, Wiggins, the year changes and everything stays the same. The decision every week in cash on DraftKings is, do you play Travis Kelce or not? That's just every week. Every week, it seems like that's what it comes down to. And honestly, like throughout the last 9 years I've been playing cash, I've probably faded Kelce more than I should have, and it's probably cost me more than it should have. But there's been a lot of slates where I've gotten there with 3K tight ends, with 2,500 tight ends that I think are pretty reasonable. And I use all that money to get better wide receiver plays who I think have the better ceiling on them than Travis Kelce does. Now, this is obviously an incredible spot for Travis Kelce, and there aren't really that many punts that I like at tight end. And so this week I'm leaning more than I am normally towards playing Travis Kelce in cash. It's just like a lot of different factors. The slate is not that tight. Kelce is underpriced, and there's no 2,500 or 3K punts that I really like. So how are you thinking about tight end here, Wiggins? And you can talk about FanDuel as well, because Kelce is much more expensive on FanDuel.
Yeah, I would like to fade him on DraftKings just because then you can get up off those cheap wide receivers that I don't feel comfortable about. But I think you probably want Kelce in your lineup. I think he should be like 7.5 here. And then also you hit the nail on the head. There aren't really a ton of great pivots. I mean, if we had if Irv Smith was 2,500, fine, fire him up. Let's do it. But he's 3.4. So I still think he's a good play at 3.4, but that's kind of a lot, and you got Dallas Goddard, 4 or 5. I think he's pretty interesting, but that's kind of like the dead zone pricing for tight ends. You don't really want to be playing guys in there. Darren Waller, I think he's fine. I think it was a contract thing, but like he hasn't played with the team all preseason, and he's 5'4", so you can poke some holes there. Maybe if Ertz was healthy, you could maybe see that, but man, it's just like I don't feel good about any of it. And then Mark Andrews really expensive. Pitts is too expensive. So you just kind of circle back to Kelsey, who almost certainly should smash here. And on DraftKings, you have the outs with the receptions. You have the 100-yard bonus. He could easily score touchdowns. I don't think he's nearly as good of a play on FanDuel. I think FanDuel, Pitts is standing out as the top play. I don't think it's a particularly great spot for Pitts, but he's probably
it is.
Okay,
Levitan is going to be playing Brevin Jordan. We know that. No, it's I think it's an awesome spot for Pitts because the Saints safety situation has become very convoluted. And also Drake London is at less than 100%, is probably going to draw Marshawn Lattimore on his perimeter routes. So I think this could be an awesome spot for Kyle Pitts. And I think that the Saints are going to score points on the Falcons. So the Falcons are going to have to answer back. And I mean, Kyle Pitts is the favorite for targets in Atlanta's pass catcher core, right? The Saints were really good against tight ends last year. But I think that just the target projection for Kyle Pitts and his ability, I think it's an awesome spot for him.
Yeah, that's interesting because on DraftKings, Kyle Pitts is kind of close to Kelsey. You only saved $900 by going down to Pitts from Kelsey. And so I don't think a ton of people are going to play Kyle Pitts. We have him at 7%. I'm certainly intrigued. Kyle Pitts for tournaments, for sure. The guys that I have on my list for cash, other than Kelsey, would be Goddard, who Wiggins mentioned at 45, and then the punts, like they should be between 2,500 and 3K, but they're not. Molly Cox is 3,400. Irv Smith is 3,400. Gerald Everett is 3,800. By the way, Donna Parham is doubtful for this game.
He's doubtful. Okay, yeah, no, that was kind of big.
Yeah,
I really like Gerald Everett.
Yeah. I just wish he was cheaper. Like if Gerald Everett was like 3K,
3,800. I mean, I
know
that's not bad, is it?
He's 700 less than Goddard, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
I think Gerald Everett's an awesome play. Best ball, but not enough. I wish I actually. Now that I'm thinking about it more, I wish I had more Gerald Everett in the best ball stuff. Yeah. But I do think Molly Cox. Irv Smith is probably the best one for roll if you believe his finger's okay, which I do. And then Gerald Everett also. I think those are the 3 punts that I like most. The Stoneman punt is our boy Isaiah Likely. Shout out Team Preseason, but it's thin, man. We don't know what his role is going to be. I could see him playing like 15 or 20 snaps in this game, but he has 2,500. We have him for about 6 DraftKings points at 2,500, which to me would not be good enough at all. What do you think about Likely, Evan? And then how confident are you about Irv Smith?
I mean, I don't like saying bad things about young players who are absolute studs like Isaiah Likely, but I just I don't know, man. I mean, the Ravens are going to have the ball like the whole game. I think I think it's so lopsided against the Jets, who just lost their second left tackle. I mean, they are cursed. The Jets are fucking cursed. Like they're starting Joe Flacco behind an offensive line where they've been they're moving George Fant now from right tackle to left tackle, and they're going to start 4th-round rookie Max Mitchell at right tackle. It's just I don't know.
It's just and also you have to think that we know Mark Andrews is going to play and be the pass catching tight end. So can they really have 2 pass catching tight ends out there at the same time for the whole game? Like I'd have to see that to believe it first. So right now, my expectation for Likely again is like 15 to 20 snaps, which he could certainly get there on, but that's not kind of bet that I normally like to make.
I think people are going to play him a little too. Like I was in Discord earlier. A lot of people were asking about him. People in the chat right now are asking about him. They want to play him because he's, the guy been trained to try and play the min tight end, and he was so good in preseason. But I just don't think. Yeah, I don't think it's a good play.
Evan Ingram at 3,500 with I know it's gross, but Washington just lost Cam Curl, their starting strong safety. He's a stud. And he probably would have, seen a bunch of snaps against Evan Ingram. And we don't really know, how is their receiver core going to shake out, And in preseason, Ingram was playing like all the first team snaps. I mean, he may go out there and play 95% of the offensive snaps for the Jaguars. On Sunday, he's 3,500. We know he has the talent. He's a chronic underachiever. Okay, but he's 3,500. And I mean, if you want to punt a tight end, I mean, I think that's better than Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, at 3,500, I prefer Irv. I prefer Everett. And I think Ingram's probably better than Mo Alley, but I'm excited for Mo Alley regardless. I'll certainly be playing some Mo Alley in tournaments. But yeah, I think the Everett Ingram thing is certainly interesting. Other guys on my list further down would be Njoku, Hooper, Brevin Jordan, Hawkinson, Waller.
How much is Njoku?
Njoku is 3,900 on DraftKings.
He's expensive.
3,900.
Well, you're missing, if the mighty Chicago Bears are going to go out there and get a win, then Cole Kmet, decent chance he hits pay dirt. But
3,700 on Cole Kmet, yes. And I will say, man, during the preseason, like the first play of Justin Fields preseason was a screen pass to Cole Kmet. Like he's actually because they have he's actually like a featured player for them. I don't think it's the worst play in the world, but
it's just all these guys are $1,000 overpriced, basically.
Right.
And that's and Kelsey is underpriced too, so you just keep circling back to Kelsey.
Exactly. Any other tight ends you guys want to mention? Oh, I wanted to. We have for the guys who don't know, we have a Sunday show, last minute live stream. We'll have information then on a lot more injuries. Evan and I will go over all that, and so we'll be able to talk if Zach Ertz is out, what we think about Trey McBride. Max Williams is there also, though, for people asking about Trey McBride, so that's something to monitor. And then Wiggins will also be on with Leone and CSU for Wake and Rake on Sunday morning. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Other guys that can actually like win you the week, Hawkinson, maybe. And that would be like it. Hawkinson and Waller beyond the guys we've talked about, maybe. But like, I don't think it's like that likely. And Hawkinson at 4,900, I don't feel great about it. We have used tight ends pretty profitably against the Eagles in the past, though. Evan, what do you think about
not pretty profitably? Like, we've profited.
Yeah.
I mean, great matchup. It's just, I mean, and I think they'll be playing from behind. I think the Lions will be playing from behind. But, I don't know. Hawkinson has just kind of been like, he hasn't really met expectations yet. Maybe this will be the year. Sometimes for tight ends, sometimes they pop. It takes 4 years for them to pop.
Yeah.
No, I think Hawkinson's a good play. It's just his price is not that great.
Yeah, and just to hammer home Wiggins' point again on DraftKings specifically, all these guys we're talking about are 1,000 too expensive than they should be, and Kelsey is probably 1,000 too cheap, and that's how you get back to contributing a really hard fade on Kelsey in cash. Any FanDuel tight end notes, Wiggins? I know you mentioned Pitts is sticking out there. Any other FanDuel tight end notes?
Yeah, you go down to Hawk or Goddard off Pitts for a little bit cheaper, but they're not projecting for that much less ownership. So and maybe I just prefer Pitts. Cheap end, it's kind of the same thing with the guys over there. I mean, if Ertz is good to go, are you guys okay playing him, or what are your thoughts on Ertz? Yeah,
I don't feel great about somebody that already like has no yak ability or really any movement ability playing through a calf injury. So I don't feel great about it.
It's not great.
Nope.
All right, let's go to defense. And I mean, you guys know me, man. I feel like one of my best skills in cash has been picking out a 2K 2,200, 2,300 defense. I don't see a great one here. I think that you can play some of these total punts, such as the Bears against Trey Lance. You can play Minnesota, although Aaron Rodgers is like so good at not turning the ball over. That one's really, really thin. You can play the Lions against Jalen Hurts. You can play maybe the Jets against Lamar and hope there's some mistakes there. You can play the Giants against Tannehill. But there's just not a lot, man. There's just not a lot of punts. And so it's just like it's not tightly priced, but for a week one slate, it's very, very tightly priced, and that flows through to defense. I think the one everybody's going to play, and we have it reflected here in the ownership projection, is the Commanders. They don't even have Chase Young. Like, I don't even think that's that great, of one is the Commanders against Jacksonville. So, Evan, what do you think about that one and any other defense takes? I mean, do you think the Commanders even have a good pass rush without Chase Young?
I actually like the Jaguars on the side of that game.
Okay,
the Jaguars can get after the passer, and I think the Jaguars are going to be like a decent team this year. So and Carson Wentz can be an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
So I think I would actually take the Jaguar side of that.
Okay, yeah, and they're the exact same price. I think that's totally fine. And by the way, Thorne has kind Commanders pass rush 16th, and that's adjusted for all the injuries that they have. And so 16th on Commanders. Again, he has the Jets pass rush 5th. And so I think the Jets are at least in play against Lamar if you can force Lamar into a lot of dropbacks. But it's tough, Wiggins. And normally we have a punt that I think is pretty clear. And on this slate, it's really hard to spend up, even though obviously we think that San Francisco and Baltimore and New Orleans are in really good spots. It's just really hard to pay that much on DraftKings. I haven't looked at defense on FanDuel yet, though. What do you think about defense as a whole, Wiggins?
Yeah, FanDuel, you got the Commanders as the top play as well. You could maybe, in the 49ers, the gap there is closer, but we've already stated that the mighty Chicago Bears are going to come out and get a win. So I don't know. The defense I like on DraftKings that I think is the best defense by a decent margin is the Dolphins. And it's not really projecting that way, but I've already told you about my Dolphins love today. So they're $100 more than the Commanders. I can't, man. Commanders, what a terrible name. Can we just call them the football team?
Yes,
Yeah.
I already said I'm calling them the football team.
Yeah, you guys are doing that already. I'm in on that. So do not play the football team in tournaments. I think that is very clear on both sides.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Dolphins. I don't know. Would you be okay playing like the Bears in cash if you needed the money? I guess it's okay.
Yeah, I don't want to. I feel maybe a little bit better about the Jets just because I think San Francisco, like Evan said, is just going to run the ball on every snap. And also Mark brings up the point here. Ronnie Stanley's doubtful for Baltimore. And the Jets actually have like a pretty good pass rush. They've certainly invested in it. And so, yeah, it's not great. I'm surprised on FanDuel, Wiggins, that we can't because they still have the cap there. The most expensive defense is still $5K, right?
Well, they didn't have the cap last year. There was defenses getting up to 5.4 or 5.5, but this week the highest is 5K with the 49ers.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm certainly not in cash, but I think in tournaments, spending up is better on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings.
And you got the Bengals at 4.4. So that the football team's 3,700. So the Bengals at 4.4 might be the best mix of everything. It's a little hard to get up to the 49ers at 5K, to be honest.
One that I think is interesting, although we do have them projected. Oh, we don't have them projected for any ownership, is the Chiefs. I mean, I can see the Cardinals and this fake sharp Cliff Kingsbury just going in there with like none of their players. Everybody's banged up there and just completely shitting the bed. And the Chiefs just like roll all over them. And I think that's an interesting one. Yeah. They are 3K.
And we all know that Kyler Murray has definitely not been watching any film, right?
Only other one up there that I think is sneaky that I'll mention is Carolina. I think Carolina actually has like some talent on defense, and
absolutely.
And they're playing against Jacoby Brissett. They're just expensive. They're 3,400.
They have a bunch of studs on defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually think Panthers like sneaky bet to win their division. I mean, if the wheels fall off of Tom Brady. If wheels fall off Tom Brady and you don't have a lot of respect for the Saints, then I think they're sneaky long shot. They're like 14-1 or something, 13-1. Eva asked if we'll ever add dark mode to the website. Buddy, we can't even get our computers to turn on. We just got Evan's face in the screen. You think we have dark mode?
What is dark mode?
Yeah, exactly.
These two boomers both don't use dark mode. I know for a fact Levitan doesn't, and I know that Silva's never even heard of it, as just evidenced by that.
Oh, one more defense. I do think some Giants guys are going to get ownership, and so Tennessee defense, they're expensive, 3,500, but obviously Daniel Jones can certainly make a lot of mistakes. John wants to know Dolphins or Jaguars. Wiggins, sounds like you prefer Dolphins.
I prefer the Dolphins, but Evan's talking up the Jags. And then I just noticed that the Jets are actually only 3-3 on FanDuel, so that might be the way to go over there.
Yeah, certainly no standouts at defense on the cheap end this week. Again, if you guys read the Millie Maker article, hopefully you're avoiding the ownership. All right, we got to get out of here because we have the betting show in 9 minutes. I'm actually really looking forward to this. If you guys are into betting, Matthew Davidow, I give no one credit whatsoever. Maybe I go too far, but I think it's like almost impossible to beat NFL sides and totals. And Matthew Davidow has been doing it for a very, very long time now. He sets odds. He's an odds maker, and sportsbooks, very big sportsbooks, buy basically what he thinks the line should be. And so I'm going to talk to him for starting in 9 minutes for the next for about 20, 25 minutes about this week's betting slate. And I think that'll be interesting. All right.
Just grinding your cock off, man.
Grinding the cock. Another wild Friday night. Okay. Wiggins will be back for Wake and Rake. Evan and I will be back for last minute live stream. We will continue to work on the projections. We'll tweak anything based on news, and we'll continue to work on the ownership projections. If you do not, if you want to use an optimizer this year, go to the Fantasy Labs add-on. You can get all the information for that up here where it says Fantasy Labs. And yeah, hope everybody's enjoying it. If there's anything that we can do to make it more digestible, the site easier to read, not dark mode, but easier to read in terms of how the menu is set up or anything like that, do not hesitate to let me know. I know we have a lot of stuff up. Our goal is just to get the best stuff up and then convey it to you guys in a way that you can find it. And so hopefully this makes sense and you guys are finding everything and it's super organized, but we're trying. All right. Karma Sutra Show is back, baby. This was fun. For Wiggins. For Silva, I am Adam. We will see you on Sunday.